Hey, y'all.
Hey, everybody.
We're live. Happy Sunday,
Yes, yes.
right? So, we talk to so many couples, and there's always one who is reluctant to move out of the United States. And usually it's the man.
Yeah, usually it's the man.
What's up with y'all?
Insecurities. You get scared.
Get scared.
You get scared of seeing new places and new things because it takes you out your comfort zone.
I mean, we've heard 1,000 excuses from, will I be safe? Will I be accepted? To, but my family, even though your family lives on the other coast, you live on one coast and they live on the other coast.
And you ain't seen them in the last 5 years.
Right. But just in case.
Just in case.
Right.
They might show up.
And you're paying for a room in your house just in case they show up, even though that room goes unused. We'll talk about that another time.
But I think it's insecurities. I just think, guys, we get in that nesting type thing that we don't want to give up our cave, and because we're comfortable, it smells the way we like it, be it stinky socks or not. We got our big screen TV. We got, you're in your own world.
But that can't be all there is.
Why not? That's what they think. I never think that way. I'm in Portugal.
We're here in Lisbon, Portugal, y'all. And it was his idea. And I'm fortunate for it. But I feel bad because sometimes we hem ourselves in and we limit the possibilities because of fear, right? Mm-hmm. And so I can't wait for our next guest because he's been out of the country for 20 years or so and has lived in various different countries on various different continents.
Yeah.
Right?
He's doing the damn thing.
He's doing it. So, ready to get started?
Yeah. Do you want to introduce ourselves first?
Absolutely. Hey, y'all. My name's Halisi.
And I'm Rick. Welcome to our Black Utopia.
On our channel, we talk about money, travel, and retiring abroad. We help folks who look just like us, maybe getting close to retirement age and forgot to get their money straight so that they can retire on time or maybe even early.
That'd be nice.
So who are we talking to today?
We're talking to Jaheed.
Yes.
And he everywhere. He's a traveler.
Exactly.
He needs to start his own TV series.
An adventurer. Absolutely. Absolutely. But first, if you are new to our channel, then you might not know about 8 years ago, Rick and I got a wake-up call, y'all. We got a wake-up call. We looked at our money. First of all, we were tired. But we looked at our money and it looked crazy. But about 3.5, 4 years ago, we did get our financial act together and we went from negative 22,000 to over 1.1 million in net worth. If we can do that, y'all.
You can do it.
You can do it too.
It can be done.
You can do it too. So let's get started. And part of that is moving abroad. That helped too.
Yes.
Keep that in mind, y'all. Keep that in mind. All right. Let's bring up our guest. Hey, Jaheed.
Hey.
How are you?
How you doing? I'm good. I'm great.
So good to see you again. We did not do you justice, so why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll say hello to the folks who are in the audience.
My name is Jaheed Bell. I'm originally from New York City, born and raised. I am 40, but I don't feel it. I feel as young as a baby. And I've been an expat for 20 years. I've lived in a couple of different countries, including Spain, the Netherlands, Germany, and as of recently, well, not so recently, Morocco. I've been here for quite some time. That's a little bit about me.
And how do you make your living over there in Morocco?
I am a linguistic consultant, specifically within the realms of the English language. I basically solve any type of problem for any entrepreneur or any employee of a multinational company that has to do with the English language. That might mean that they might have to learn the language from the bottom up. They might need to learn sector or industry specific English that corresponds to whichever domain they work in. It may have to do with working with certain individuals with special needs, depending on the context and depending on the situation. But I do a lot of work with the local entrepreneurs here in Casablanca.
That's exciting. That's exciting. And I want to visit Casablanca simply because I love the movie. Is that goofy?
Well, truth be told, is very, very interesting because Casablanca, the city here in Morocco, almost has nothing to do with Casablanca, the movie. And that becomes the most surprising part, I think, about discovering not only Casablanca, but Morocco in general. You can't really have set expectations for Morocco because everyone that you will speak to that comes to Morocco has such a unique and different experience.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So there's no bar restaurant called Rick's.
You do have Rick's, and I'm not far from them actually. And it is amazing, and they make amazing cocktails. They have amazing food, and they have jazz nights, which are just out of this world. However, that is not all of Casablanca.
Okay.
Casablanca has way more to offer, and it is definitely a place worth discovering. I will put it like that.
And it's interesting because here we are in this what does the Chinese proverb say? In interesting times.
Absolutely.
And we bring up Casablanca, and the reason why the protagonists were in Casablanca because they were trying to escape tyranny in Germany.
Interesting.
And right, or maybe you've never seen the movie.
A
But
long time ago.
yeah, well, I was a film student, so you know how that goes. We were like film snobs. So, but I watched it too many times to count. I could probably say the words with it. But yeah, they were trying to escape tyranny in Germany or France actually, but because of Germany. So they were escaping from France. They went to Morocco, which probably was a French colony,
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
this is true.
And so here we are again in a time where it looks like tyranny is on the rise.
Absolutely. And there is historical background to what you say as well. There were a lot of not only Jews, but also Nazis that had come to Casablanca as well as Tangier in the northern part of Morocco. And they based themselves here either to hide or to seek refuge.
Depending on what side you on.
Yeah, depending on whatever side. But it was definitely that type of territory.
They went to Venezuela too, according to my Spanish tutor.
Absolutely.
The bad
Argentina,
guys.
Venezuela, Brazil. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So it's very, very interesting.
It is interesting. Well, let's say hello to the folks in the audience before we get too deep into this conversation, because we want to hear from the beginning. I mean, you're only 40 and you've been away from the United States or not lived permanently in the United States for 20 years. And that is pretty incredible. We've got CK in the house. Hey, CK.
Hey.
Hi, Vibe.
Hi, Vibe.
Eileen is in the house.
Hey, Miss Brown.
Hey, Karen Louise.
Hey, Karen Louise.
You know, it's funny because there's certain people who always get a special hello to us. We love you all, but there are certain folks like Karen Louise and Action VJ who have been here from the beginning, who followed us through all of our audio issues and everything else. And we just so appreciate you guys. We really, really do. Hey, Sir Panther Man.
Hey, Eleanor.
In the house. Diane. Curtis is logging in from Michigan. Ann Arbor,
All
Michigan.
right.
Is it still cold there? It's hot here. We're in the 80s. It's hot.
Yeah, it's hot here in Casablanca as well.
Yep. You know, I'm glad. I'm tired. I was tired of the rain, actually. I really was. Hey, Vanessa. Hey, Laura. Jametta's in the house.
Wow.
Meriton. Chandra.
All right. They're showing out.
So some of your folks in the audience, here we go. Pinky is in the house. Stella, Maria, Diane. Is that 2 days in a row, Diane? It might be. Hey, Krishan.
That's awesome. Black Sid.
Yes. So for those of you who are planning Portugal, y'all, if you're coming for our Rich Journeys meetups, come a few days early. We have partnered with Blacksit Global to do a 2-day meetup with a boat excursion. Information is in the description below. So yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it. We only have, I think, 5 more spots on
Hey,
the boat.
Shaquan.
So
Yeah.
hey, Shaquan.
Hey, Shaquan.
So Shaquan, you guys won't be back in time, but you will be at my birthday party. So
Yep, she said they would.
yep. So 5 more spots on the boat, y'all. Don't wait. Don't wait. Hey, Greta, 2 days in a row. RJ, Steven, Lori's in the house. Hey, Greta. Miss Frederica Cruz is in the house. This looks like a new name. TJRS.
Amen.
Ibel or Bell. I'm not sure. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Shannon. Linda's in the house. My piece.
Linda.
Bobby, we missed
Hey,
you
Bobby.
yesterday on our group coaching. I'm calling folks out. You hear me? I'm calling folks out.
Amen.
Life is just a surprise. Shanora, all right, y'all. We love you. We love you. We love you. We're going to get started. Thank you so much. Everyone just chime in and let us know where you're logging into. If you're logging in from the future, if you're watching from the future, hi. Let us know where you're logging in from. We get folks from all over the world, and that is what's so incredible because you found us.
Amen.
And when I heard your story, I was like, oh, we got to talk to him.
We got to talk.
I don't think that's why you emailed us, but hey,
It's okay.
My mind is always about opportunities, right?
Amen.
Tracy, Vicky's in the house. Great to see all of you guys. We love you. We love you. We love you. Okay, let's hear. How did you? Okay, you grew up in New York.
Yeah.
And so you must have been rich, and then that's how you ended up traveling at and getting out of the country at 20 years old. Let's hear this story of privilege.
Well, not at all. I come from a very, very modest family, middle class family. I grew up in the Bronx, a place called Co-op City. It's in the northern part of the Bronx, near Westchester. Went to public school. Really modest. I mean, I started out working at supermarkets, packing bags, really, kind of down to earth, grassroots, homegrown type stuff. When I was about 16 years old, my mom actually talked me out of competing in the McDonald's Gospel Fest in New York. My high school choir. Yeah, I do. I didn't tell you about that now. but we'll get to it. My high school choir had been selected to compete in the McDonald's Gospel Fest that year. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was 2000, the year 2000. And I wanted to compete in this thing so badly. However, at the same time, my mother had enrolled me or applied for me to go on an international exchange program that was being run by the YMCA of New York, Greater New York. This program gave, I would say pretty much anyone the possibility, if they were a teenager and of eligible age, to go abroad to have a cultural experience. It was a whole program of 3 weeks, homestay, and to, basically go on a variety of different excursions as a part of cultural enrichment. Education. It was a whole educational program. Again, run by the YMCA. It was partially publicly funded as well as privately funded. It was a part of the J1 visa project, and also SEVIS was also a part of that project. And it received government funding directly from the federal government as well. My mother, she said, you are not going to compete in this fest. You're going to Thailand. I had been selected to go to Thailand for 3 weeks. And I think they had gone to Venezuela. They'd taken a group to Venezuela. It was only 10 of us, 10 on each trip. So there were 10 New York City or New York greater region teams that had gone to Thailand. Korea was another trip. Venezuela was another trip. Mexico was another trip. And I think there were only 4 trips that year. The next year, my best friend went. And they went to 5 different countries, host sites. It was it was really, really an enlightening experience. It was eye-opening, and it was definitely educational. I mean, it helped me to really start thinking about things in a more critical light, and to start asking more questions, not only about how the world worked and why other countries were the way they were, but also why is it that our country is the way it is. And that was the beginning of my journey.
I love it. And you know, I don't know if those YMCA programs were around when I was that age, but dang, I did have the opportunity to go abroad. And unfortunately, my mom did not insist.
Mm,
I wanted to go to cheerleading camp.
right. I
I
mean,
wish my
I'm
mom would
so
have
glad. I
had
wouldn't
the
trade it in for
insight,
anything.
right? I wish my mom would have had the insight that your mom had and said, that's nice. You'll go
Yeah,
next year.
right.
This
That's
year,
exactly what you said.
right?
Because black mothers.
Right. I think my mom was like, whew, I ain't got to pay for that.
Right, right.
Because this was not paid by grants or anything. She was going to have to come out of pocket, but she could afford it. She could afford it. She was working in the entertainment industry, driving around a Cadillac. She could afford
Well, I
it.
mean, even for those who could not afford the program, there was a kind of scholarship that you could apply for. And unfortunately, all of these programs got government funding cut after 9/11. And so you saw less and less of them, unfortunately. And now, as it stands, I think you could probably count on one hand how many organizations actually offer this type of programming. And it is honestly not as affordable, and it's rare if you can find a scholarship, unless it's linked to, for example, an undergraduate's program or something like that.
Right.
So, it's that really critical area of, I think, a youth's life. Any age between 12 and, I would say, 17 is so crucial, because you're really starting to understand how the world works. You're starting to understand yourself in a different way in relation to others, in relation to your society. You are preparing to make that transition between high school and college. And I think it's so important for young people to take trips at that very, very crucial age, and also for parents to get their children exposed. It's really important.
Right,
Right.
right.
And if you are dedicated, you can find the programs. You can find the
You can.
programs.
My
Right. I
mother.
know, right? I'm sure they're
I
not
was
as
like, how do you
plentiful,
find this?
right? I'm sure they're not as plentiful as they were, but I had a
If you
friend, she
dig.
found all the programs for her kids. Her kids were
Right,
involved in everything.
right,
And when I got a fellowship to go to South Africa for about a month, there was no way I was going without my son.
right.
There was no way. And I was so glad that he was able to see, first of all, to see the privilege that he had. Because, the thing about South Africa and other countries like that, there's the wealthy and then abject poverty,
Right,
right?
right.
Some in
The
between, but
disparity.
the disparity is so huge. As a matter of fact, on the Gini, um, I think it's called coefficient or something like that, the
Hmm.
index that measures pay disparity and income disparity and wealth disparity, South Africa
Right.
is the worst. It's the
Yeah.
worst, which is sad because it had the opportunity to do so much more. But where's that thing from? So actually, BJ said, my class went from LA to Sacramento and I thought we were doing something.
I know, right?
Well, you were doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some people never leave their zip code.
I was going to say,
Right.
you've never been to
Especially if you're
Sacramento.
from New York City.
Really, really.
A lot of New
So
Yorkers, I mean, this is just like a new thing. I think the younger New Yorkers now travel, but the New Yorkers who grew up during the 90s and the 80s, like, you're going to where? Alabama?
for
You're going
why?
to, why? Why are you going there? We have everything here.
Exactly. Exactly. And I can't say LA is the zip code, but people in LA think the world revolves around
Hmm.
everything. The sun rises and sets or
Much
whatever,
like New
right?
York. Yeah.
Right. And so Go where? For what? We got it
Right.
all here. Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
That and the crime and the high prices.
I got the opportunity to go to Alaska with the Navy on a naval ship as a Navy
Wow.
personnel. Then I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay, at 15 years
Yeah,
Wow.
old.
and I mean 2 week.
That's a pretty big trip though,
It
Alaska.
it it was amazing. I mean, especially with the Navy, and you had to do everything that they did pretty much. But it was an experience,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are
Wow.
like, "Wow," like I was going across the world somewhere. It's like, yeah, to me it was.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit farther than Sacramento. A little bit farther than Sacramento. So you said when you came back from Thailand, it made you see the world differently and yourself differently. How did it make you see yourself differently?
I think based on or to further what you said, it helped me understand my privilege
Mm,
in the world. Even when, for example, in maybe your own city in the US or your own country, you don't feel privileged. It helped you understand, or it helped me understand, excuse me, I speak from the I, helped me understand that one man's trash is another man's treasure. It helped me understand that the cost of something is not necessarily the value of that thing. There were just so many revelatory moments that I had during that trip, to value clean streets, to value, I don't know, the iPhone in your hand that that your parents got you, to just value time and moments that you spend with people versus just material. I think especially in New York, because it's the center of capitalism, we are so consumed with material a lot of the times, not all New Yorkers, but a good lot of us, or we get caught up in it somehow, some way, that we don't realize that actually that is not going to matter in another 2, 3, 10 years. Rather, this time that you have with this individual, the most of the time in New York, you won't see us really slow down until the end of the year, the holiday times,
Okay.
So a lot of people think because I've been gone from New York for so long, living at least, that I'm not a New Yorker. Now that's another fallacy. We need to clarify, because if I need to, whip it out, well, hey, let's go. We'll break it down New York style. But to answer your
Vaseline on the
question,
elbows.
right? Well, the girls do that, but the guys get down a little differently. But I think the whole experience in itself, it just raises so much curiosity. It raises so much question, especially when you're younger rather than when you're older. When you're older, I think it turns into more of a comparison thing, and it turns into more of a you being critical. But when you're younger, it's like, wait, let me digest this for a moment, because you're still experiencing different things throughout your youth. So you're not even in that mode of, all right, I've seen it all, I've done it all,
Right.
and I think that's really important. I think it's really, really.
I do too. And I hope parents are listening. So Frederica says the Yes Abroad program was created after 9/11 by the federal government for American students to study and live in Muslim countries. Oh, interesting. The program still exists. My son
Interesting.
was accepted and
Okay.
lived in Turkey.
Oh,
That's why Michael is so bright. Oops, I
I
probably
had
shouldn't
no
say his
idea.
first name. See, I be knowing these folks, right? Like that's why he is so on point.
Interesting.
Yeah, when I met her son, and he's so young at the time, and more mature than my son, which was he was about 6 years older. Um, so there's no you cannot trade those opportunities, and you never the ripple effect that it has, not just on that person's life, but on
Right.
everyone's life around them, and
Right.
um, how they affect everybody else's life, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you went on this trip to Thailand in high school. Now you back home,
Yeah.
in the choir, singing in the choir. So how did you become an immigrant, a perpetual immigrant, or some people like to say expat?
Well, it kind of happened through reunification that I made the choice to embark on with my father's side of the family. I didn't grow up with my biological father. My parents separated when I was quite young. My father's from Curacao, which is one of the ABC islands.
Yep.
Curacao is right off the coast of Venezuela, and it is still officially a Dutch colony governed by the Dutch Kingdom or the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And so I said, well, at that time, I didn't even know I could claim dual nationality, and I wasn't even focused on that. My main goal and concern was to reunify with my aunts, my uncles, some of the family members which had never even known I existed. So it was quite a journey. It was an emotional journey. It was a spiritual journey. It was a cultural journey because I had to learn about this completely other dimension of myself that I wasn't really aware of.
Right.
And not only that, but also the other baggage that came with it, the colonial baggage. So that was when I moved to Amsterdam,
Okay.
where I lived for 5 years.
And that used to be the party capital.
It's still the party capital. We don't have to get that twisted. It's still the party capital. I just think maybe because times have changed, the way people party has also changed a bit. And party etiquette has also changed. And I think anybody who, grew up in the 80s and the 90s, they probably say the same.
Okay.
But it's still an amazing city to visit. It's very, very vibrant. A lot of people might say it's a cold place in terms of just the vibe. But it's kind of like basically where New Yorkers kind of originate from, in terms of Calvinism and the beliefs and principles that go along with Calvinism. And it was actually the place where capitalism was established, Amsterdam, and then exported or brought over to the Americas. So it's quite an interesting place, a lot to see, a lot of touristic and heritage sites. Definitely a party place, but you have to be careful in places like Amsterdam because you can get lost in yourself, you know. And luckily, I had family there, and I had really, really great leaders and counselors, throughout my youth, so I didn't get lost.
That's cool. That's cool. So did you go to school there?
I went to school there. I attempted to go to school there, but I went actually to New School University in New York,
Okay.
and I graduated there before I went to Amsterdam. And then I tried to take another undergrad program in Amsterdam, and the system is just really, really different. Um,
Interesting.
and it focuses really on a different set of educational principles. It's more about memorization and it's less about questioning. And that's something that's very, very common throughout a lot of Western Europe. In terms of their education systems, it's about we'll learn how that one did it versus ask and challenge and so it's quite different.
Interesting. The Dutch were interesting colonizers. I'm also a
Yeah.
Black American male living in Amsterdam now. Welcome,
Oh,
welcome,
cool.
welcome.
Yeah.
Are you partying?
I already know the answer,
Right.
unless you're a bookworm.
Hey, Tunisia. Um, okay, so you've got dual citizenship.
Yes. Eventually, yes, I claim for my second passport.
Here's your balloon.
You
I,
got
I have
balloons.
I have no idea how to turn that off. I have no idea. And I
I thought
actually
it was deliberate.
well, exactly. And this will do it. I mean, there's a lot of gestures that bring things up. And I don't know if it's a Mac thing or what. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And I have yet to take the time to figure it out. I realized I need more patience. I've got patience with people, but I don't have patience in figuring stuff out. If I can't figure it out right away, it's like I'm gonna call somebody. I have no patience. Um, So Jess was saying that she's her fourth great grandma was Dutch. I don't think you can claim anything, Jess, with that.
No, that's
I
too
think it
far back.
I think it has to be grandparents on up
Right.
to be able to claim.
And normally it works. It's a patriarchal society. It's based on Latin code law, which focuses on the man's lineage. So it would have to be, I think you could claim up until the great grandfather, but then you have to prove also that that your grandparents or great grandparents were married at the time of your parents' birth or the time of your birth. So, I mean, they make it really, really complex. But yeah.
So Krishan wants to know, you grew up in co-op.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah, I
In
grew up.
section 1.
I grew up in section 5. Just so you know. I know that means nothing to you guys.
It's all Greek to me. It's all Greek to me.
It's interesting though to find somebody that comes from my part of New York on the feed.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I'm like, it's such a specific part of New York.
Did you learn papiamento? Okay, we're gonna get to that. Y'all
Yeah.
are getting into some very specific. So Laura asks, "Hi Jaheed, how do you see the U.S. now that you've been out of the United States so long?"
Oh wow, that's a very fully charged question. There's a love and hate relationship going on. There's an ongoing frustration that I feel because even when I go back home to visit, once a year, occasionally twice a year, then I always kind of, I don't know, I feel like I'm more and more of an alien to the United States than anything. I feel like we're going in retrograde. We're moving in retrograde. We're not moving forward. We're listening to each other less and less. We lack empathy. And everything's become about pointing fingers or trying to find someone or some group to hold accountable instead of taking our own responsibility in the situation or the matter. And I just don't remember growing up in a country that promoted these type of values that we're promoting right now, whether we do it actively or passively. And so that's what I feel. I feel our leadership doesn't represent us at all in any kind of way. But I also think that it is not disconnected from what is going on the ground between citizens.
It's not disconnected. And I would say that it actually did exist when we were younger. I think that not normal citizens, but those in power stopped listening to each other after the Civil Rights Amendment was passed. That was the straw. Like, we ain't getting them black folks. What you want to do? What?
Right.
And right. And so after that became the divide. That became the dividing line. Those folks in power who were going to stand with people of color, and those who were going to say there's no such thing as racism, and they
Right.
have the same opportunities that the rest of us have. The gaslighters.
Right.
The gaslighters, right? And then it just got worse and worse and worse because we didn't nip it in the bud in the first place. When Reagan was talking about, I don't think you were born, but when Reagan was talking, when he was talking about the welfare queen and found one black woman, now never mind all the other folks who were on AFDC at the time. But the one black woman who was gaming that system good, I heard she didn't even really exist. But if she existed, it's interesting because in my family, the only person on welfare was my white aunt. On my mom's
Interesting.
side. In case my dad's side's listening, on my mom's side. She was the only one. She's the only one. So, so the narrative that we are lazy, the narrative that we don't want to work, that we don't take care of our kids, that black men don't do this and black men don't do that has been going on from as far back as I can remember. And Jaheed, I had a young man in my program, my youth program, who sat there and said, you know, black men don't, he was black.
Mm-hmm.
Black men don't do this and black men don't do, I said, no, baby, no, no, no. Say we. You're not gonna, like, you're black. So you're not going to sit there. And so that's how insidious it is when you have
Right.
black males repeating that nonsense, because one black male in their family didn't do right.
Right.
There's a male in everybody's family who ain't doing right.
Right. But that becomes a single story narrative.
Right? The one represents the group, but not for other folks, only for us. Only for us.
Mm.
So I think that so it started with the Civil Rights Amendment, and then when that black man got in that White House, oh, they really lost their minds. They
Oh,
really
yeah.
lost their minds, right? And that was it. That was it. And then it was no holds barred. No holds barred after that, you know. But we're going to talk about that more. Okay, so after the Netherlands, then what?
Well, I had kind of, I don't know, I got introduced to teaching when I was convinced to, go on this volunteer project. It was a 2-month volunteer project to Thailand. This was the second time that I had gone to Thailand now, because the first time, remember, was through the YMCA, the program that my mom had put me onto. So then I met a reformed prostitute in Amsterdam who had married a Dutch guy, had, 2 full-grown women already, and she wanted to go back to her kind of part of Thailand, which is, it's kind of like a rural area of Bangkok City. And she wanted to start a school where the kids would learn English. These were elementary grade kids. Some of them were really small, but the majority of them, I would say, were between the ages of 8 and like 12. And she was like, yeah, I'm starting my foundation. It was a Dutch founded foundation. And she wanted to, bring English to her part of Bangkok, Thailand. So she said, all right, I'll pay for your ticket. I'll house you. I'll feed you. Only thing you have to do is teach, a few hours during the day for about 2 months. And then the evenings are yours. You can do whatever you want. Your weekends are yours. It was awesome because I would go into the city after teaching every day. And I developed such a passion for teaching. So the teaching part is 2 different parts that I got to cultivate throughout these two months. I got to teach English, and I got to learn how to become a better teacher. And I was exposed to the art of teaching through volunteering. And then at the same time, I was able to have all of this free time in Thailand to just do whatever I wanted, and I didn't have to pay have to pay for anything, basically, just like my own drinks and, my fun time, basically. Right. So in the evenings, and on the weekends, I would go into the downtown area of Bangkok, and I would pretty much go to open mic nights, and meet up with.
In the choir. That's right.
Right. I would go to open mic nights. I would go to karaoke nights at different bars throughout the city. And then I would meet up with different expats that I would meet either through a platform called Couchsurfing or through other expat websites and stuff like that. I stumbled upon a place called the Overstay. It was a hostel that was brought over by, happened to be an Israeli, actually. And he renovated this whole kind of like, I think it was maybe 9-story tenement in downtown Bangkok. And he turned it into this hostel. And they were just like backpackers from literally all over the world that were coming here. So he had a mini bar at the base, or rather in the lobby of the hostel. And I would just meet a lot of new people just over and over and over. I met this German young lady who's from Bavaria, which is in the southern part of Germany. And she was always walking around with a camera. We met probably 2 times before we actually introduced ourselves to one another. And she was like, are you going out again tonight? Are you going to one of those musical events? I'm going to follow you. She was trying to convince me that she was doing a documentary about music. So I was like, okay, whatever. I was like, cool, you can come along. You know, we ended up making good friends. And that was kind of like the doorway to the next journey. Because when the trip was all said and done, I think by that time I had fulfilled my purpose in Amsterdam. I had gotten to know my family. And because I didn't grow up with them, I didn't have that same kind of, like, they couldn't keep tabs on me and I couldn't keep tabs on them.
Right.
Even though we knew each other and we would see each other regularly. And I was living alone in my own apartment in Amsterdam. So I said, you know what would life be like? I wonder if I would have moved to another European country, you know? And my German friend, she convinced me. She was like, yeah, a lot of stuff is going on in Berlin. It's a great place, this, that, and the other. And I was like, but Germany, you sure? Is it safe for me? Somebody like me, you know? And she was like, oh, no, those times are way, you know, past us and stuff like that. And you need to come and have your own experience, which has been kind of a resounding, I don't know, kind of like proverb for me. You have to have your own experience. I think everyone needs to have their own experience. And I'm so glad that I just went with the flow and I went and had my own experience. Went for a month, supposed to be a week at first. And she was like, yeah, come crash with me. That way you could, you know, learn the ropes, see how things goes, or see how things go. And then she was like, yeah, well, you know, if you really like it here, and, you know, she took me to all the parties. I mean, we were wasted almost every other night because, you know, there you can drink alcohol on the streets all the time. I mean, and I was in my 20s.
Here too.
Same here.
Right. So we had the most amazing time going to underground parties and iconic venues and stuff like that. And I said, I might need a little bit of this in my life. And yeah, I think maybe about 6 months later, I parted ways. I was coming to the end of my lease terms on my apartment in Amsterdam. And I was just like, I don't know what to expect, but hey, I'm in it for the learning experience.
Yeah.
And it was so great because it taught me about, you know, living in Berlin taught me a lot about our history as Americans in relation to Germany, and also helped me learn a lot of nuanced things about some other history in other regions of the world that were connected.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That was long-winded, but
No, that was great. So it's interesting that you ended up in Germany because of somebody you met in Thailand.
yes, exactly. You got it. You got it right.
And was it, I don't know the year, did the EU exist? Did you have any problems immigrating?
No, the EU's been established since I think 99, if I'm
It
correct.
was the 90s. I thought it was the 90s.
Yeah, it was the late 90s.
I wasn't quite sure. So, okay. So this was just like moving state to state then.
Yeah, basically.
No big deal.
I mean, there's still formalities you have to do as a European national when you move from one EU state to another, but still, I mean, it was much easier than, you know, for example, having to apply for a visa and going through that whole process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they want them taxes is what they want. Okay,
Yes, they do.
No longer there, they over here now.
Right.
That's the thing, right? Are you a tax resident?
Right.
So, okay, so how long did you spend in Germany?
4 years.
Okay.
I lived there for 4 years. And that was,
Turn into 4 years.
yeah, it was, I still think about it and I'm like, I was there for 4 years. But time really flew by quickly. And I think because I was so in that, all right, this is new. And I just want to experience something new. And I was just meeting a lot of different people from a lot of different places. You had a lot of, because of what happened in, for example, what was it? I think it was in 2008, the financial crisis. I was in Amsterdam at that point. I think it was about 2010. When I actually moved, 2007, 2014, that's when I was in Berlin. And there was so much migration to Berlin from so many other parts of Europe because of the austerity measures that the EU had put in place for the Mediterranean, the countries in the Mediterranean. So Greece, Italy, Spain. So we had a lot of people coming to Berlin, right? Portugal, coming to Berlin. and they were coming in like tribes. So it was like, wave of like culture and another wave, and you get hit, and it's like, okay, well, I didn't know y'all did stuff like this. And it was just so interesting. It was so stimulating, and I was just learning so much. Even, when we talk about Greek people and, how they speak about World War II versus the Germans, there's a lot of stuff that they don't agree on. So getting all of the different perspectives really helped me start to ask newer questions about things that also were connected to the United States and our government and policies that we had taken around certain times, and it was just a very, very, I think a very, very another enlightening moment in my life, and throughout my journey that, it just, I don't know, it just makes you feel good,
And how did you pay your bills?
While I was there, I was only performing.
So with your clothes on.
Of course, absolutely. No, I was doing concerts at different venues,
Okay.
some
Also,
known, some smaller.
you did some of the solos in the choir. You weren't the one that the other people were trying to get back on key.
You was a European celebrity.
Well, I wouldn't want to say that, but they definitely love entertainment, and live entertainment. And I think because of World War II, especially, and because Black Americans really brought it in a way like no other, that still kind of reverberates within these parts of Europe, that experience a lot of American forces, being based around them. Ramstein, Germany, still, a big base down there. I think you have one in Belgium as well. In the Netherlands, you have one, but you used to have more than one. In France, you have a couple of bases, right? So, we're still very present. We're still very much on the ground, and Black Americans at that.
Right.
So, it creates a difference. When you go to the southern part of Germany, they're used to Black Americans, and they don't have as many, I would say, isms. Right. Good. You took that suffix right out of my mouth. They don't have as many isms as the Northern Germans.
Yeah.
The people from Western Germany, they border the Netherlands, which is very multicultural. And so when I'm talking about Western Germany, I'm talking about Cologne, depends on how you want to pronounce it. I'm talking about, all of that, Frankfurt, everything around that part of Germany. They are like open. They're semi-multicultural, but they're more receptive. They're used to difference in a different way. The closer you get to Berlin, the surrounding areas of Berlin, well, I'll be honest, you have to pay attention as a person of color, in a different way. But when you get into Berlin, the periphery of Berlin, things change again. Why? Because the whole country was split between Russia, France, England, and the U.S., but mainly Russia, basically in the West.
Right.
And there was that wall that was there. So just a lot of history, a lot to learn, and it helps bring when you start to watch the news and you think about our geopolitical relationships with different nations. After living in a place like Berlin, you start to really understand why the U.S. makes certain decisions as a government, makes certain decisions, geopolitical decisions, versus others, and then some of it just doesn't make sense at all, but
follow the money.
Right.
Follow the money, and then it'll all make sense.
Right.
Okay, I had to put this up.
Somebody, when I was younger, they used to call me Tay Diggs. My people in high school, they used to always call me Tay Diggs. They would mock me, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, what do they call me? Winston from How Stella Got Her Groove Back."
Okay. That is funny. So there's something that you said that is resonating with folks. The cost of something isn't necessarily the value.
Right. It's true.
I'm writing that down. Whoa, that's the word, Vicky says.
All right.
So it sounds like you're resonating. Okay, okay, Krishan. Did you learn Papiamento?
So unfortunately, I didn't learn Papiamentu. Why? Just because a lot of islanders, especially from the Caribbean, are very, very, they're very, I won't say they're, well, to a certain extent, they're collectivist. They're very tribal. I think that's a better way to put it, because they're not really collectivists, they're individualists, but they're very tribal. So if you didn't grow up with the tribe, you aren't necessarily seen as a tribe. And now you don't have that many people, Antillean people who speak Papiamento in the Netherlands. They speak Dutch while they're there. They speak the colonial language. And if they do speak Papiamento, they're within their tribe, you know, which is something very, very sacred. And not everyone can penetrate that. My cousins were born and raised in the Netherlands. So they don't speak Papiamento. I think my oldest one, he can understand it, but he can't speak it. And then the younger cousins, they just speak Dutch. That's their language, you know? So my aunt, she can speak it, but they're not trying to teach nobody. They don't got no time to teach nobody no Papiamento. I learned a few words here and there, but because I already spoke Spanish, because I grew up in New York with a Puerto Rican babysitter from age 3 to 12. So she taught me how to read and write Spanish from very, very young.
Very fortunate. Very fortunate.
And so I went to Europe with a second language already under my belt. And then I learned Dutch because I was there, you know, obviously for 10 years, but also because it helped me socialize with everyone in a different way.
Yeah.
Because my younger cousin couldn't speak any English when I met him, that was my motivation to learn Dutch, actually. When I hear Papiamento, I can understand probably about 60% of it. If I see it written, I can understand pretty much all of it. Yeah. Because it's a mixture. It's a mixture of French, Spanish, English, Dutch, and French. No, did I say French? Yeah. And Spanish, English, and Portuguese. Sorry, Portuguese is between Spanish and Portuguese. That's the base of the Creole that they speak.
Yeah, it's a patois. So we have a friend who also speaks Dutch. She was engaged to someone who is from the Netherlands. And when I hear her speaking, it sounds like Pig Latin to me. It sounds like English, Pig Latin. Like, wait, that ain't a real word. Girl, you just making that up.
Right.
You're just making that up. And then my Spanish tutor is in Germany, her German boyfriend, trying to learn German. And she showed me the word for hammer, and it was like this long with all these consonants and everything. I'm like, 15 letters?
Wow.
For the word hammer?
That's crazy.
Yeah. We were sitting there trying to pronounce it. And, you know, in Spanish, you pronounce everything.
Yeah. It's what we call a phonetic language. Arabic works the same as Spanish. The way you see it written is the way you pronounce it. Yeah, English is definitely not a phonetic language, nor is French.
By no means, nor is Portuguese. So Frederica says Reagan and Welfare Queen, George Burst, and the Willie Horton ad. I forgot, right? See, so they have always, George Bush, the first one.
Right.
Most folks on welfare have been and continue to be white Americans, of course.
Oh, yeah.
So this has been going on, right? This divide and conquer,
right.
Blaming others for the plight, you know, because if poor white folk didn't blame us, then they'd have to blame folks who look like them, who are in power, who have their thumb on their neck, just like they have it on our neck as well, right? And if we all came together, maybe we could get something done. But it's very strategic. They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing.
Right? Because there's more poor folk than there are of them.
I don't know. From what I've seen, you know, again, I haven't been home throughout the whole evolution of what has happened over the course of the 20 years, living, experiencing everything. But from what I see, it is basically keep them distracted for as long as possible. Keep them infighting for as long as possible while we back here changing the locks on this door. You know, while we're back here writing new policies, while we're back here stealing money and laundering money, that's what I see. How do we jump from an infrastructure bill to now we're sending all this money to, I'm not going to say it, but I think you guys already know,
To
No,
wherever,
right,
to
right.
wherever,
to
to
wherever, just not
what is
to
the
us.
what's the latest police action that's going on? What's the latest nonsense that's going on? As if every inch of ground on this planet has not already been claimed. There is no
Right,
fighting over anything else. There are no savages or any of that you need to apostatize, disciplize, or whatever the heck
right,
you're trying to do. But we know what it's about. You know, it's about power and control,
right,
and then who is going to control the resources? Who's going to control the natural resources as this planet continues to die
right.
under the watch of people who do not look like us?
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Under the power of people who do not look like us. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being selfish, but I'm going to be selfish because we have paid the price for too long. It's their problem. They jacked it up. They need to fix it. Now, I'm going to do my part as far as global warming goes and stuff like that. I'm going to do my part as far as treating people with love, whoever I come in contact with, until you don't deserve it. And then I'm going to love you from afar, love
Right.
you with the love of Jesus, right? Which means I'm going to ignore you. That's what that means. Have you, how have you been received in all the countries you've lived in?
Good
So
question.
Greta's trying to skip to the end.
Okay, we can save it if you want.
Is it safe for a black man?
Hmm.
Now you've already heard of 9 years of his life spent in Western Europe. And I want to know, for those 9 years, how many times were you pulled over by the police and asked for your papers, or what are you doing in this neighborhood?
I would say only once. Only once, and it was nothing like how it would have gone down in New York. It was literally just a random check. I think there was some type of terrorist alert or something like that, and the police in Amsterdam were checking people's papers. I mean, it's a rule there that you have to have a form of ID on you, just in case you're stopped by an authority, and you
It's a
have
rule
to
in the
show
United
your
States too. People don't know.
see. You see. This is what I mean. So it was just really, really casual. He asked me I showed him because I didn't have a light on my bike, you know. And so I showed him, and then it was just like, okay, cool. Have a good day. He said, have a good day. I was
Okay.
like, you too.
Okay. So that's not harassment.
Not
That's
even.
right. That's a routine stop. And it's interesting because I ask every young male of color, usually black here in Portugal, about their experience interacting with the police.
Right.
And I say young black males because that's who's targeted in the United States.
It's true.
Once they get this, they kind of, they're not as much on the radar with
Absolutely.
cops. But and the problem is like, you could be 31,
Right.
not 40, right?
Thank
And
you.
then well, black don't crack, can't
It
be your
doesn't.
only beauty secret, but and then they see our 14 and 15-year-olds as 20-year-olds,
Right.
right? And so there's a large group of people that fall within that 18 to 31, where young males are targeted anyway, and that is the age group that police say, get into the most trouble and blah blah blah, whoop de whoop. So we're young and looked at as old, or we're older, but because we age well, we're looked at
Right.
as younger, right? And harassed. So I asked them here, and I've gotten from all of them, yeah, once in a while. And I'm like, for no reason, for no apparent reason, not,
Right.
because these are good guys, for no apparent reason, you're just asked or you are stopped. Yep. I said, and how often does it turn violent? And then they kind of, huh? What do you mean?
Right.
What do you mean? And the Brazilians, I said, and how would that be in Brazil? They
Oh
said, oh,
wow.
Oh, we might have been beaten,
Right.
or what have you, you know. And so that's the Americas.
Yeah. The
And what,
Americas, we have
right?
a
That's what we do.
completely different DNA when we talk about history and culture, and
Exactly.
it's just very different. Another thing that I do want to point out is a nuance that maybe a lot of Black Americans might not be aware of, and any other Americans that may not happen to be Black, that are listening, and that is when you are a European Black or a European of color versus an American of color, white Europeans will prioritize you over their own. Depending on the context, white Europeans will prioritize you over their own. There is a thriving Black population in the Netherlands. However, they don't treat that Black population, their own Black population, and they don't hold them to the same regard as Black Americans. If it's like, and I don't know if that has to do with, well, they think or believe that we're just going to leave at some point anyway. But there's more curiosity, there's more interest shown when you are a Black American versus a European Black or
Yeah.
European of color.
Yeah.
So that's just something that I also want to put out there. This stuff is the same way, that Black Americans maybe are not going to be revered as much as a Black European in
America.
the bigger cities of America. It's different. So that's something that also needs to be really, really, really thought about carefully and considered.
Yeah. And I can see that. I can see that. I can see the privilege that Rick and I have as, I think not as Americans, but as English speakers.
As English speaker, there you go. You put it. You hit it right on the nose.
Right. Because English is still the language of business. And so some think we're from Britain. They can't tell the difference in the accents, which is weird to me.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like,
especially because here in Portugal, the movies, all the American movies are not dubbed. So they're
Right.
used to hearing our accent,
right.
not their accent, which has a lot of vowels. And I mean, they like stretch out these vowels and put
I
two
know.
vowels in there. I love the English accent. I really do. But,
Yeah.
we kind of been programmed that way. But yeah, it's like, that's kind of funny that they think that we are from Inglaterra. But the other thing that we learned here is that the hierarchy, right, the classism,
Right.
and Africans are at the top for POCs here.
Interesting.
Brazilians, this is the word from my Portuguese friends who are a little bit more progressive, right? Like, I'm just going by what they said, so don't get in my comments, y'all. This is what they said. But don't get in my comments. We're pointing out specific people who are in the chat right now. But this is what they said: Africans, Brazilians, right? And I was like, I would have thought the opposite because
Yeah.
of how America, teaches us, right? It's definitely going to be Brazilians over Africans in America
Right.
on the food chain, right? All of us are getting stomped on, just some a little bit more than others,
Amen.
unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get to some of these questions, and then we'll get you to Morocco.
All right.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. So Tracy wants to know, was there a particular reason you didn't choose Thailand?
Thailand is interesting. Now, I love Thailand. Don't get me wrong. To live there, I think for a person of color would be a lot more challenging. And I do know there are people of color that do choose Thailand as a place to base themselves out of. However, a lot of them don't stay on the long term. That's something that I've observed. It tends to be a year here or 2 years. It's very rare when you meet a Black American, a person of color Black normally, who stays in Thailand for a duration of time. Thais have a bit of a complex, it's just like the Japanese, colorism. It's not just about colorism. It's also about not being a part of the tribe again, you
Okay.
know. You're not Buddhist. Even if they are secular as you don't know, you don't even know what, and you catch them at the bar drinking, they'll be with all types of hebo-jibo people. You know what I mean? But you're not a part of that, what's going on, you
Right.
know. And of course, if you have a Thai accent on top of it, they're definitely like, okay, Falang. They call you Falang. That means foreigner. You
Ah,
know, that means the outsider basically in Thai. And it's not a very, very good feeling to have. When you're a tourist, you're going to have an amazing time. And people are respectful. For the most part, people are respectful. They will try to, cheat you a little here in a taxi or whatever, but that's normal no matter where you go, no matter where you travel to. But I did meet a Black American from the Midwest who did live there. And he had lived there, I think, for a period of 3 years. And he was just so over the experience. He was traumatized, actually. And he wasn't even, he's not dark skinned. He's lighter than all of us.
and
But
still,
and he had been in relationships with two Thai women as well. And some of the stuff he said that would come out of their mouths was just very offensive. And there was no second guessing it. It was just, well, you're in this country and while you're here, you just need to accept it and get used to it, kind of thing. So I'm not knocking Thailand. It might suit certain individuals, for certain purposes. For me, that was definitely not a place that I want to live, not for a long duration of time. It would have to be for a specific objective.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I
Again,
do love it there. It's beautiful. And in the city, it's very different from the countryside. I spent time in Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, which are beautiful. People very respectful. They're very Buddhist, very principled individuals, very hygienic. And then, Bangkok City, well, that's another big old, I'll call it a salad.
yeah, yeah. I love the fact, Jaheed, that you say, but you've got to experience it for yourself. You've got to figure, because everyone's
Right.
experience is going to be different. Um, so Jess wants to know, which country can you envision yourself growing old in?
I'd definitely say Morocco for sure. I would definitely say probably a country that is, like actually Christian. I would say, I don't know. I feel like I get along with folks that still stick to more conventional ways of living and doing things. I still go to see my family up in Europe. Europe is nice, but honestly, I think being in a place where you are not, I don't know how I would put this, where you don't feel like you're being elaborated upon, and you also don't feel as if you're invisible, I think is important. Where you actually feel like you can build with people around you, not like you're building for people around you, or that people are building something for you, because there's so many different angles to look at this from. We can look at it from an imperialistic point of view. We can look at it from a colonial point of view. It changes depending on which country you go to
Right.
and what their relationship to the colonizer is or was. It depends on your class, and how you view yourself within the context of being American as well. That can change things. It could change depending on your sexuality or how you identify gender wise. It could depend on so many different things. And that's why you have to have your own experience. I go back to that same line. You have to have your own experience, because if you don't have it, maybe it will never be had, period.
Yeah,
And there will be no reference,
exactly.
But
Exactly.
even if there is a reference, that's not necessarily your reference, so.
And that's the thing. That's the thing, because it's interesting. When you were mentioning Bangkok, I was thinking about a lady who used to live here in Lisbon, and her and her husband packed up and moved to Bangkok.
Moved there.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't see how Bangkok and Lisbon show up on the same list.
They don't, trust me.
Like, but you know, I mean, everybody's different, right? Like, and we always encourage people to have a list of needs and wants.
Right.
You know, make sure the majority of your needs are met and at least half your wants or so, you know, enough for you to be happy. And if you do that list, how does Bangkok and Lisbon end up on the same list? I don't like that. You know, maybe it did for them. I don't know what their needs and wants are, but it certainly wouldn't have been. Both of these cities would not have been on my list. That is for sure. Okay, so you're in Germany for 4 years.
Yeah.
Where to next?
Cool. So this is another kind of crazy story about how I ended up doing a backpack journey through Morocco. When I was living in Germany, I was living literally on the border of where the Berlin Wall used to stand. It had been taken down, and it had become, and it still is, a predominantly Turkish neighborhood. There are quite a lot of Arabs and Muslims that live in that region as well. But you also have pockets of course, ethnic Germans, white Germans, and then you have some other nationalities that have kind of come into. It's kind of become kind of like an East Village, kind of like for New York East Village for Berlin. It's an area called Kreuzberg. So Kreuzberg means the cross mountain, actually, or the cross hill. And actually, there's a park right in front of my old apartment building called Gorlitzer Park. This is where a bomb had dropped, where the Americans had dropped a bomb. So there's this huge crater that's still there. But now this crater they put a lawn over it, and it looks kind of like an amphitheater, but it's a really, really weird amphitheater. And people have picnics there like every weekend, you know? Wow. There's an old train station that used to be there. There was a trainway. And they made a restaurant out of the train station. You can still see the old tracks and the cobblestone from the original structure. So it's Berlin is like living and walking through a museum, walking through history, right? So anyway, across from the U-Bahn station, which is their version of the subway that was running overground, there was a youth hostel. And there, I remember I forgot, I was walking past the entrance of the youth hostel one day, and then I bumped into this French guy named Julian. He would wear this funny little hat. He looked like Peter Pan, and we would make fun of him eventually after I got to know him. But I bumped into him, and then I was like, excuse me, sir, can you watch where you're going? And he has a very heavy French accent. He's from Montpellier. And he goes, no, you must watch where you're going, you know? And he got really, I was like, bro, what do you want to do? You know? So then eventually other people got involved. They calmed us down. And it turned out that we ran into each other on a different occasion, right again in front of the hostel. So the second time, he's like, hey, man, how you doing? You want to come up for a drink? So I went up, had a beer with him or whatever. We got to become friends over, I think, the course of 6 months or whatever, maybe a little bit longer. And then I had I'm born the last day, I'm born New Year's Eve. So he invited me over for a New Year's Eve drink, for a birthday drink or drinks. And he was like, okay, cool. And this was at his job. He was working reception, very relaxed in Berlin. It's like, I don't know, New York in the 80s. So, you didn't have anybody standing over your shoulder. Quite different now, I think, compared to then, because Berlin's been changing too. But now there's this huge world map inside of the lobby next to a little mini bar that they had next to the reception area. He's like, okay, let's have some drinks at the mini bar. Sitting at the mini bar, having drinks, people coming in and out, New Year's. And he's like, all right, let's play a game. And now this is after we had a couple of bottles of that Hefe. We call it Hefeweizen. It's that wheat beer made from wheat.
Okay.
It's very, very potent. It's heavy. I forgot how much percentage it is, but it's like a yellow colored beer. And it has this big thing of foam that comes. It's like, but it's really sweet and it's really good. Germans call it bread. So we're having these things, we're gobbling them down. He's like, let's play a game. I'm like, play a game, bro. I'm about to go conk out because, you know, I had quite a few. He did too. And he's like, all right, well, let's play this game before you go. He's like, let me blindfold. I'm like, bro, I don't blindfold what? I said, no. I said, you got the wrong idea. No, I was like, no. I said, I'm not from Berlin. I'm from New York. Let's keep that in mind. So then eventually I was just like, all right, whatever. So he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to spin you around. And now I was already tipsy. And the first place that you point to on the map, you're going to buy a one-way ticket to. And so he spun me around and I pointed to the map and take a wild guess where it was. Yes.
Really?
And that's how you
That's
I chose it when I was drunk.
remember, one-way ticket.
Right.
One-way ticket.
What I mean, and did he pick out a country too?
No, it was just me. It was the first place on the map that I had pointed to. First, that was a country that I would go to.
Why didn't he play the game? Why you?
I think I was just too gone. I was too far out to even think about equity. You know? But actually I thought it was a very, very great challenge the next day when I woke up. I thought it was a really great challenge. And I said, you know what? This is interesting because that hosting platform, Couchsurfing, I had experienced while I was living in Berlin. I had experience hosting an Australian, a Japanese, someone from Venezuela, someone from Brazil, and another person from even Israel. And I was like, this seems like really cool. This platform, this Couchsurfing thing, I need to check it out and try it out myself, you know, because I've met just a whole bunch of. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this Couchsurfing thing in Morocco. And that's what I did. And I set up all of my hosts before I went there.
Okay.
I booked hotels in advance and stuff like that just to make sure, you know, I had something to fall back on. But it was really, I used it really as an opportunity for me to explore, to learn, not necessarily about the religion, but the culture and the customs. Right. But by default, in a place like Morocco, you're going to learn things about the religion. You're going to learn about how it impacts social culture, relations between genders. You're going to learn about how it affects diet, how it affects just different aspects, different layers of life and way of life. So my first Couchsurf host was a Berber in a Berber village.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in a house made of mud, right. And they didn't have a lot. I didn't know what to expect. I went in with literally zero expectation.
Right.
And I'm so glad that I did because not only was it liberating and educational, but it was a spiritual experience. It's something that I think everyone should experience at some point or another. Traveling through mass tourism is a really, really bad idea.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
If you haven't traveled alone first, it's a really bad idea because that becomes your crutch. That becomes your inhibitor. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't develop a sense of self. You don't develop a sense of direction. You don't develop your inner voice, and you really don't know who you are. Traveling to Morocco alone really taught me a lot about who I am.
I bet. It's a bubble. And we say that's the difference between a tourist and a traveler.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
I want to hear what you learned about yourself on that initial trip, but you said something that I had to write down. So what did you learn about the religion that you didn't already know or that surprised you?
I think the purpose of fasting. And ironically, Ramadan has just finished for Muslims around the world. Right. But it wasn't clear to me what the purpose of fasting was. And I think in Western countries, that whole concept is demonized too much. We don't focus on the why. We focus on the what too much. That's what our media does. That's what is constantly being drilled into us. Focus on the what. Look at what they're doing versus why are they doing it. And when I found out that it really had to do with, it being kind of a homage, paying homage to poor people, and it having a much more profound meaning than just we ain't eating all day. We ain't eating for, this amount of time. I said, wow, this is really selflessness. This type of thing instills empathy. And you will hear me talk about that word a lot. Yeah. Empathy is so important for me. Ever since I was young, it's been drilled into me. My babysitter from Puerto Rico, she came to the US with literally nothing. Her and her husband, Puerto Rican and her Dominican husband, they built their family, they started their business. And those type of stories of immigrants are not talked about as much, I think, in mainstream American media. No. The people who contribute to our communities, who contribute to our economy, we're focused on those bad ones or the illegals.
Yeah. Of course. They're more or less blamed instead of honored.
Right. Right.
And they all get grouped into one group, right?
Right. That's the thing.
Americans are so ignorant, right? How come all the Mexicans, those are not Mexicans.
Right.
Well, but they speak Spanish.
Right.
Did that really just come out your
mouth? In New York, we speak Spanish too. So
right. And you get to vote.
Right.
Talk about that's who needs the jelly bean test. People saying stupid crap like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that was just like, that was wow, really.
It's interesting because the last church that I belonged to, they did fasting, and prayer and fasting. It definitely was not about other people.
Right.
It wasn't just about not eating either. But it was basically giving up something in an effort to build your relationship with God, and making that sacrifice, and they do it during Lent and stuff like that, which is, it's interesting. Right. All these religions are against each other, yet they all do the same thing around the same time.
Right. Mm-hmm. And another thing that there isn't enough emphasis put on is the fact that although Muslims don't eat pork, technically in Christianity, we shouldn't be eating it either.
Yes, we should, because but go ahead with what you were going to say. You were going to say something good, and I'm making a joke.
Well, because of the fact that this animal doesn't sweat, basically. So where do the toxins stay? It stays up under the skin. I personally don't eat pork because of that. Occasionally, I'll slip a little bacon in there or something, but it's not. Because I'm here, it's so much easier to not eat that meat. And also, it's just not easily accessible. You can find it in the supermarket if you want to, but it's not healthy.
It's not on the kosher menu either for Jews.
Right, because Jews also don't eat pork because it's a part of it.
Religions are so right? Like, I wish humans would just get over themselves and stop it.
Right.
Because if all of the religions are supposed to be about love, show me some damn love.
Right. Let's look for the similarities and put less emphasis on the differences.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So that initial couch surfing backpack trip to Morocco, that happened because you got drunk with a rude French guy.
Right. In Berlin.
In Berlin.
On my birthday.
I love it. All right, we have a Christmas baby. So,
oh yeah, cool, awesome. That's awesome.
Well, she doesn't think so. I'm sure.
I know.
Right. It's like,
I get it.
This may be about me. But what did you learn about yourself?
I would have to say that I learned to live simply, but to love with complexity. I learned the concept of consumption liberty, that you don't always have to spend money just to spend money. It's not necessary. You don't have to spend money, on just stuff, stuff that you don't need. I learned that stepping out on life stepping out on faith is really, really important as well, because you never know what's going to happen. I think in the West, we've obsessed with causality. And we always think that if this one thing happens, that other thing is going to happen. Now, it's not to say that certain things aren't provoked, but when we live in that and bask in that kind of obsession, we stop ourselves from having authentic experiences with people and with our environment. I think traveling and having this experience allowed me to have grace with myself, allow me to forgive myself and my past for a lot of things, in just every aspect of my life. And it also really taught me that you need to be your biggest fan. You have to be your biggest fan. If you are not your biggest fan, you can't expect anybody else to be your fan,
It's true.
And it's very, very important.
That is so profound, because a lot of us who are in these struggle love relationships, it is because the person that they are with are not their biggest fan. They don't
Right.
think they think they're crap. And so if you with me, you must be crap too.
Right.
Right. So Debbie wants everybody to know she was there when the wall came down. I remember it.
Oh, interesting.
It seems to me that, and I might be getting this mixed up, but it seems to me that the wall was coming down around the same time as there was like riots happening in LA.
Yes, I think so.
And I was pregnant with our youngest. And I was like, oh my gosh, the world is burning down. I was glad that the wall was coming down. I thought that was amazing. But the world was on fire in those days. It still is, just in different ways. If you had a daughter, what country and city would you send her?
This is a good question. Oh, this is interesting. This is an interesting question. I think I would I'm thinking about now with everything going on
in the world.
It definitely wouldn't be Europe. It definitely wouldn't be the US. It would probably be Singapore. It would probably be Singapore. Why? Because I know that she wouldn't have to worry about her safety in the same way. I know that she wouldn't have to be worried about dealing with ignorance or poverty in the same way. And also because Singapore is off the chain. I mean, it's a business hub, and they are at the forefront in terms of anything innovative. They are really leading the way in many, many ways. It would definitely be probably Singapore.
That's some money.
It also keeps her out of harm's way. If a bomb drops, I mean, people are not worried about Singapore like that.
They're not really worried about Portugal either, I don't think. How many total languages do you speak?
So, of course,
Ebonics.
Ebonics, yeah, I know, right? So, Spanish, Dutch, a little bit of Moroccan dialectal Arabic, because it's quite complex. And Arabic, you just have a lot of different versions of Arabic depending on which Arab state or Islamic state you go to, and I can because of the Spanish, I can understand a lot of Portuguese. Definitely read it, a lot of French. I'm not a fluent French speaker, but because again, the colonial environment, post-colonial environment here in Morocco, they use French as a business language. So they're trying to up their game on English. So this is definitely a great spot. If you would like to open up your own consultancy or you want to, come and teach in Morocco, it's definitely a great environment to do so. Casablanca is the business capital. Rabat is the administrative capital. Marrakesh is the touristic capital. Tangier is still in development, but it's pretty developed at this point for tourism as well. And it's right across the water from Spain. So it's awesome. You can drive up into Spain and then even hit Portugal if you wanted to.
Yep.
With a caravan.
We keep saying we're going to take a ferry across, and we've got to make that happen.
And you've been to Portugal, right?
Oh yeah, twice. Awesome.
What do you think?
Oh, I love Lisbon. I think I remember traveling to an old Arabic castle right outside of Lisbon,
Hmm.
but I can't remember the name of it, to be honest.
Yep.
But I remember it was really relaxed. Last time I was there was actually I went there in 2009. So just before that spring of 2009, just before I went to Thailand, actually.
Okay. It's a
Yeah,
different city now.
Yeah.
I
You
can
probably
imagine.
you probably wouldn't even recognize it. Hey, Jaheed,
Absolutely
your
not.
name is beautiful and is of Arabic origin and means dignified and is meant to convey respect and noble character. Do you speak any Moroccan Arabic, which he just answered, and Berber?
Tamazid, yeah, cool. So in Arabic, yeah, my Arabic is really, really basic. Bekhair, Lebes, how are you doing? I know a lot of taxi lingo because I deal with taxis and car services all the time. Nishan means straight. Liman means right. Lisser means left. Um, Nash, sleep. I mean, basics. My Arabic is really, really basic. And my name is Arabic, actually. Normally, they would spell it with a Jahid. Um, from what I have come to understand, in different Eastern regions, my name takes on different meaning. It derives from Arabic. However, it takes on different meaning if it's in Persian or if it's in Farsi, sorry, or if it's in I think Pakistani language. So, but I know that the one that keeps reoccurring is the one who fights for what they believe in. And now my name is connected with jihad, which does not mean holy war.
In case you didn't know.
Right, rather the struggle, the spiritual struggle. I am the one who fights with myself. I'm the one who fights for my family. I'm the one who fights for what I believe in. And that's what my name means. My mother chose it. My mother grew up as a Christian, still a Christian. My father's Christian, you know. But, you know, in the US, we like to mix it up every once in a while.
Well, in their
So,
minds, you got an African name, right? Like, and it might be Swahili as well. There might be a version of it that is Swahili as
right,
well.
exactly. It's also possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Halisi is Swahili.
Oh, cool.
Okay, here's a good one. And if I haven't asked your questions, because I want to ask your question at a specific time. So I see you.
Okay.
How do you view the police force in America compared to the policing in other parts of the world? Never ending's coming hard.
Hmm. Um, Policing in the US comes from a very, very specific perspective. We are a military state. We are a military state, and because we are a military state, that is going to translate over into how enforcement enforces. Um, is it just? Is it necessary? Absolutely not. But that's that ideology in terms of this is how we're going to keep order. And until the people make the decision to say we will not tolerate this anymore, however that might, come to
Look.
fruition,
Mhm.
it will continue and it will get worse.
Mhm.
Policing is to be a police officer is a civil servant job. It is not you don't have slaves. You don't have well, you're funny, Alice. But you don't it's not I'm here, you're there. But now, when we talk about military, well, that's the approach that is used when training, right? My bestie, she's in the Air Force. She comes from the Air Force anyway. And it's just a different ideology to rule and order, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
A lot. I think another thing to keep in mind is Western countries have a very different concept of governance.
Yes.
In the West, for the Western perspective, it is one rule, one ruler, or one rule, one ruler. But in a civilization state, or traditionally civilization states, they would consider it one ruler, many systems. West, one rule, one system. Civilization state, one rule, many systems. Sometimes
Mm.
they overlap.
Right.
So, that when we think of the Moroccan Empire, when we think of the Chinese Empire, a lot of us, we see China as a nation state. No, these are different groups that have been absorbed by China, and they have
Right.
their own customs. They eat differently.
Yep.
They maybe have different dialects and stuff. They maybe worship differently. Buddhists, and you have Muslim Chinese too. So they have a completely different ideology from how we do in the Western Hemisphere. The East also the Middle East also has a different ideology, and once you understand that, you start to understand the relationship between power and those who don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also one of the things about the Americas is unlike other countries or other continents, especially the Americas were where the dregs went, the dregs of society. Like if you had it popping and going on in Britain, in the Netherlands, in Spain, France, in Portugal, you weren't trying to move to the Americas,
You were not.
or Australia. This is where they sent the people who needed to go to debtor's prison, had
Right.
gambling issues, this, that, and the other. They used America and Australia as basically where they sent all the bad people. And
Right.
those are the people who, quote unquote, the founding fathers that people want to reveal. Like,
Those were the guinea pigs of the day. They were like, okay, let's send them all out. Let's see what happens. And if they,
right,
right,
right. But they were not the most educated from those
right,
countries. They were not the wealthy from those countries. They were not the sophisticated from those countries. They were not in the power structure. So they had a chip on their shoulder.
right,
And then they came to America and said, yeah, I'm going to treat everybody like they was treating me.
right.
I'm the landlord now, right? I'm going to be the boss. And I'm going to have all these tenant farmers, slaves. But
Right.
it probably started off as tenant farmers, worshiping me, right? Now I done come up. I'm the Jeffersons now. And there's a certain psychological problem with that is ingrained into the culture and the laws and systems of America,
Right.
the Americas,
The
I would say.
Americas.
I would say. And so you're never going to get the kind of I don't know. I don't know. I just I grieve for my birth country.
Yeah.
And
Same here.
it could have been so much more than it's ended up being. And it's all because of greed. It's all because of greed. And half these people, they haven't even met a person of color, and yet they've got hate in their heart because they think we move their cheese. Debbie, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Sweet Pea, because you said that at 9:25 my time. Well, it's 10 o'clock my time, and we're gonna wrap this up because you're 2 hours ahead of us, so we ain't gonna keep you up
Well,
too
now I'm
late.
only one because the time changed last night.
Oh, did the time change? Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, that's not as
So
bad.
now I'm in your time zone.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 10 o'clock there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Debbie. And I'm so thankful that there are some countries in Africa that are starting to realize this issue that you were speaking on. I'm not sure which issue, but yeah, I mean, and talk about grieving. I grieve for some of the countries in Africa that have taken back power and seem to be imitating the oppressor. I think it was Frantz Fanon that said, "The oppressed imitate the oppressor." He was from Haiti. I spent over 10 years overseas in different countries and was never pulled over by anyone for anything.
Right. You see?
Right? So I've had one experience with the police. When I walked out of the self check at the grocery store, the beeper went off.
Oh.
But another guy was walking out at the same time and then walked back in.
Hmm.
And I think it was him. But, and so I had to look through my stuff. These cops, So I had some gum in my purse that was open. And he's like, well, could be this. Gum ain't gonna set off no
I
alarm
mean,
unless it's
come
already open. So,
right.
right. So
Look, if
he
you're gonna steal something, you're gonna make it worthwhile,
thank you.
right?
Like Pastor used to say, you don't want to drown in no shallow water.
Right,
Come
right.
on now. Come on. So so,
Petty.
so he held up the gum to the lady who checks all of the people who are self-checking, right? And
Yeah.
she went like this and walked away. and, and and at the same time he was like, I'm sorry, it's just and I didn't speak Portuguese well
Right.
enough, and I was speaking Portugal. So then he started speaking Spanish, and then we could communicate. And he
Yeah.
was saying, I'm sorry, it's just that the sound went off, and I've just got to check, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, go back to playing, Candy Crush, because that's what
Right.
you're doing.
Right. That's what you were doing, right.
And he's like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Now, some other cops in America had my dad on the ground in his suit. I ain't heard sorry. And I, at 10 or 11 years old, was in the car watching this with all these guns pointed at him. I ain't heard
Right.
sorry yet once they realized he wasn't the one.
Right.
Because, somebody who looked like him. Right. Okay. So Becca
Right.
says, I have had the same experience when I talk to some white people here because my accent is different from a Black American person. Oh, interesting. So I'm
Mm.
assuming, Becca, that you are in the United States dealing with the Beckys and stuff. And then, okay. So Greta says, out of all the countries you've lived in, which one is your favorite?
Okay, so that's really difficult because each country represented a different part of my life. And I think that I was just in a different mode. I had different needs. I had different desires. I don't know. I was just at a different, I was at different stages in my life. I think I definitely would have to say that Germany is not on that list, even though it was a great experience. I appreciate that experience. I value that experience. But it's not one that I necessarily enjoyed living in
Oh, interesting.
completely. Berlin, I liked. Germany, I didn't really like so much when I had to travel and spend time in other parts of Germany, to be honest. Um, Morocco, I really like Morocco. The Netherlands, I like. It's a little boring, quite linear, but things work. Um, and then Spain. Oh, because I forgot to tell you I was in Spain. Yeah, that's right. I lived in Spain for about a year and a half. I was in Barcelona. Um, it was cool, but Barcelona is just not that type of city you want to live in. It's great for visiting. Um, yeah, so I think I would have to, but Spain is a beautiful place. I think I like Malaga, Spain, out of all of Spain. To live in Malaga, Spain would
Of
definitely
course.
be something to consider.
Of course.
A good friend of mine from Chicago, by the way, he lives in Girona or Girona.
Get on. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just
Okay.
north of about 40 minutes north of Barcelona. And he loves it.
We
He's a
were there for
cyclist.
3 weeks.
Oh yeah, cool. So you
Oh,
already know.
he's a
He's a cyclist.
cyclist.
Yeah.
No wonder.
Yeah.
No wonder. Okay. Yeah. So that is definitely a cycling town. Yeah, we did a 3-week house sit there.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah,
What
and
was that like?
it was fun. I mean, I think 3 weeks was a little bit long. I got tired of the cats waking me
Yeah.
up.
Oh, okay.
That part. But we stayed in this beautiful apartment. The couple that we were who owned the cats were so accommodating and and nice and checking in and left us food and stuff, and which was also very sweet. But I realized that 2 weeks of pet sitting is probably my
Yeah,
max.
it's
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it
And the
was
kitties were so
beautiful.
cute.
And they were cute,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like I was ready to come home.
Yeah. So it's Girona was lovely, and we we did some expat things, with their little expat group. And the interesting thing, the interesting thing about that group is one of the nighttime things, they've got Spanish folks coming to
Hmm.
practice their English.
Oh, wow. That's
So then
cool.
I got to talk to, folks who lived in Spain and or Girona, if they weren't visiting, and hear about their life there and hear about their culture there and things like
That's
that.
awesome.
Some Catalan as well as, Spanish.
Yeah, I couldn't really get with the Catalan stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
just speak Spanish, folks. But anyway, I'm not trying to knock, but
Look, because people have wanted to tell us who we are for the majority of the time that we
right,
landed on that other rock in
it's true.
America, I feel like everybody has the right to self-identify,
Absolutely, absolutely, completely.
right?
You're completely
So
right.
because I don't totally understand the history, I'm going to reserve opinion. But it was interesting learning what I did learn because we were there during one of the anniversaries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
that's
were there.
interesting.
They had protests going on, and then right after a protest, they did this little dance in the
Right.
circle where people coming up. That was interesting.
Yeah, they do the
Yeah.
same kind of dance
We
here.
we called it the Soul Train.
Yeah, it is the European
So
Soul
Soul
Train.
Train Circle.
Exactly.
It's
Uh,
interesting.
It was
And
very interesting.
from a linguistic point of view, it's very, very interesting because that region of Catalonia used to be connected to Sardinia and what is now Corsica. And
right.
when they hear each other speaking their dialects, they can make it out. You know, they can make it out. That's around the time where Spanish, French, and Italian then broke off into different languages. You
Yeah,
know,
because when I was looking at some of the words, first of all, I thought I would understand more.
right?
When I was looking at some of the words, it's like, okay, that looks like French.
Yeah, because that's the root of these languages before they branched out.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. Okay, so Mr. P-Man says, does Jaheed feel Morocco is welcoming to African American tourists? I've wanted to visit for years, but have had reservations.
So I think the best way to answer that question, it really has to do with what type of traveler you are. If you're looking for a really touristic type of experience, I highly suggest that you go to Marrakesh or you do like a desert tour. If you are looking for more cosmopolitan experiences, definitely come to Casablanca. If you like seaside, go to Tangier in the north. If you like seaside, go to Agadir in the south. You'll love it down there as well. It's very touristic as well. It's really difficult to be able to say if Morocco is welcoming to African American tourists because one thing that you're going to find, which is very common in throughout all of the Islamic states, is that they don't really feel comfortable about putting emphasis on culture, color. Even if they have a history, because we already know that the Muslims have slaves now, even if they have a history of slavery, a lot of them are not really aware about it. Not from a historical point of view, at least. And they don't really feel comfortable with division and compartmentalizing groups. It's either for them, it's either you're Muslim or you're not Muslim.
That's
That's
the dividing line.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, so what I think is you need to have your own experience. That's what it
Right.
sounds like.
Yeah.
Based on the information that I gave you about, what type of traveler you are. If you don't like big cities and you don't like cars and traffic and stuff like that, do not come to Casablanca. But they do have an international airport with plenty of connections here to other parts of Africa as well. If you want to maybe just pass through or something. Marrakesh also has a really great airport, a lot of great international connections as well to the sub-Saharan countries as well as the Middle East, Dubai, for example. Definitely worth checking out, but you have to figure out what it is that you want to see. I want to add to that. I want to talk about racism really, really briefly in the context of travel. Also within this context of Morocco, racism exists. We all know it. It's not this, invisible fairy tale pixie dust, whatever, that, pops in and out whenever we decide we
Really?
wanted to.
Because Karen said,
Most people are prejudiced and not necessarily racist. But remember, our experiences can also be projected onto others. And we have to be very, very mindful and aware of when it's prejudice and when it's racism. Because if you really take the time out to think, you'll know the difference.
yeah.
Racism is not our responsibility, yet it is our burden. It is not every individual's responsibility to be a freedom fighter. However, we are representatives of not only our country but our culture. As Black and Brown Americans. So I think that we do have to go out into the world and set an example. That is very, very important. And we have to set a respectful and respectable example at the same time. And then the last point I want to make about racism is that patience in reaction is crucial. Patience in reaction is crucial. Sometimes it's not necessary to react at all. It's happening to us before we make the next best right move. And that next best right move might be that you actually have to remove yourself from the space that is not doing you any type of service. So yeah, that's what I want to say about that in the context of travel, not just in Morocco, but anywhere you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact. What were you going to say, sweetheart?
No, I totally agree. You do, because a lot of times, especially, coming over to Europe or different places, wherever you go, how somebody says something to you or
Right.
speaks to you.
It triggers folks sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, it's triggered me. It's like, well, wait a minute. They sound like they're beside themselves.
Right.
And it's not that way at all.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
If you don't understand the culture, then you don't understand, and you don't understand the language, you're making assumptions. And it's interesting
Right.
because I was talking to a friend of ours who's been here for about 5 years, and he was talking to a man who had only been here 9 months and said he can't take it anymore. He's going back to America, a Black man. And our friend said, really, why? And he says, well, the racism is just out of control. And he's like, give me a for instance. And the gentleman who left was older, and our friend is about your age, maybe
Right.
a year or two older. And he's like, well, give me a for instance. And so he started telling him his experiences, and he's like, are you sure that was racism?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think the notion that we project, right, like we come with our own baggage and make assumptions and project how we are feeling onto others.
Right.
And so often, like I have not felt anything with racism. I felt the lack of patience from my lack of Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But as far as racism goes, I don't think I've heard it. I mean, I felt it. Okay, let's start getting this wrapped up.
All right.
How is the Moroccan environment for women? I heard it may be a different experience.
Cool. So this is a good question. Morocco is definitely a safe country overall. A woman can definitely feel different here, mainly because she will get a lot of questions. It's common that she get questioned a lot. Hi, are you married? And if you're not married, well, that can end up going in two different directions. Either people will leave you alone, or they try to get married. So one thing I would say for any woman traveling through Morocco, as well as any Arab Islamic state, is always promote that you are with someone, even if they are not physically with you. They don't need to know the details of everything. And, they can question whether you have your wedding ring on or not or whatever. You can say that's personal and that's none of your business, and you can keep it moving. That does not mean that Morocco is not a safe country. What that means is that they have a different perception of married versus unmarried. And that just has to do with them. That has nothing to do with you. We want to be respectful within the context of sometimes more conservative society. So, if you walk out, just like in the States, if you walk out, looking in something skimpy looking, well, you will attract eyes. If you wear something modest, well, you'll get modest looks. People won't, you won't stick out as much. It is not looked at in a positive light if, you're wearing a mini skirt. And it's, and you're trying to go to the mosque. Like, that's just not going to happen. That's not going, you want to do some sightseeing. Like, just don't do it. I'm not going to walk out in Speedos, either. You know what I mean? Like, it's to some, like, I'm not going to walk with my chest out, even though it's hot, So I think it's just, using common sense and just being appropriate to the context and the situation. If you don't like attention, negative attention specifically, then just don't put yourself out there like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to wrap up. First time my bestie from Harlem came, she was like, am I going to have to wrap up? I'm like, no, you don't have to wrap up, silly.
Yeah, I would, just to try and blend. Just to, not in the whole hijab, but just to, the whole burqa or anything like that. But,
right.
I do that. I do that here for warmth, especially during the wintertime. And I try to notice if anybody's viewing me differently.
Well, yeah. Well, that's another good thing that you mentioned, because a jaleba is kind of like a casual wear gown, Moroccan style or North African style gown. I don't wear them, not because they're not beautiful and I don't like them. I don't wear them because I don't want there to be confusion about who I am and what I'm here to do.
Right.
I don't wear certain traditional things because I find it to be a kind of cultural appropriation. And, some people might have an argument about that, but I just don't do it because I know who I am and I don't need to be anybody else. And I don't have to have fun. I think a lot of Americans, when we go abroad and we dress up like the people that are from there, we think, oh, it's just for fun. It's just for show. That can be seen as disrespectful, and you can be misunderstood, especially being Black in another country, in an Islamic state. You can be understood to be a Muslim, and you do something that's out of code, you won't even know.
Yeah, especially if you're not Muslim.
So I keep it clear. I was waiting for.
I knew this was going to come up. You can choose to or not answer this question.
I am single. Okay. And I'm ready to mingle.
So that leads to the other question that always comes up with single people. How's the dating there in Morocco?
Interesting. Very, very interesting. How do I approach this? I think Morocco is a very collectivist society. The Western countries in the industrialized world are very individualist countries. When you have such a disparity in terms of way of life and how society works, you have to spend more time to get to know people. And you have to understand the culture and the society that they live in on a deeper level as well. Deep enough so that you can understand whether your values align.
Right.
For me, empathy is important, like I mentioned earlier. Exceptionalism is important. Discipline is important, and honesty is important. So it could be that, our societies don't operate 100%, but if we intersect in these 4 areas, we can make something happen.
Right.
Even if it ends up as us just being good friends, we can make something happen. But I think traditionally, from what I've or on many occasions, I'll put it like this, on many occasions for what I've seen, when Westerners marry people who do not come from the same system, uh, it'll usually work for a certain amount of time. I've seen some long-term ones now, they've lasted and they're still going.
Yep.
But that tends to be older generations that had more empathy and they have more patience. Now it's not really the case. The relationships don't last, or they're not based on authenticity. They're not based on right.
We didn't grow up in no swipe era.
Right.
I don't know, like, there was no swipe when we got together. I don't understand that whole system. I just don't get it. I don't.
Well, our values in the West have changed, and quite rapidly. It's no longer about honesty. It's no longer about respect. It's about looking like it's honest, looking like it's respect. So, well, that's what you're gonna get. You can't be one thing and have expectations set over here to have this other thing. You're gonna get what you are.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that notion that what is reality and what is just an act. I don't think most Americans have figured that out yet. Like, especially when I hear people say, the United States is a Christian nation or was built on Christian principles. No, it wasn't. Right? Like, it pretends. It says it, but that doesn't make it so.
Well,
So,
this has to do with us reading on a regular basis and traveling. When we travel and we read, we start to understand not only the world differently, but also ourselves differently. And then we can compare objectively, not with just books and, scholars from the United States system, but also from other systems and other countries that also have something very valid and factual to say
yep.
and to speak to.
And there are no alternative facts.
Right.
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 So somebody up in here is lying.
Right.
So Teddy wants to know how difficult it is to get a visa.
So the great thing about Morocco is that for all Europeans and all Americans, you can receive a stamp upon entry for, I think it's 90 days, if I'm correct.
Okay. So
a 90-day stay. Tourist visa, stamp upon arrival.
Okay. Residency visa.
Residency, you would have to either start your own business or buy property in Morocco. Right.
Okay.
Or you marry and you get married because you're in love, right?
Right. So there's no retirement visa. There's no, I got my own money and I just want to come here and chill visa.
If I'm correct, you do have a retirement situation, but I think it's way more strict. But they do offer that possibility as well. It tends to be less common here in Morocco. But yeah, it is also a possibility here.
There's no retirement visa for the United States. I don't think folks realize that. Like the ease in getting residency in other countries does not exist in the United States.
Right.
So Frederica wants everybody to know the root of most of the U.S. police departments was based on catching runaway slaves. Yeah, not order of maintenance or protection of citizens.
Makes sense.
Or protection of property.
Right.
Right. Certainly not to keep people safe. It was never about keeping people safe. It's about property and money.
Right.
Have you been to Bahrain?
I have not. This is the only Islamic state that I've been to. And honestly, a lot of people might argue that it is a secular state with a lot of Islamic heritage. But that can be argued, and I'm not going to get into that discussion.
Morocco or Bahrain?
Morocco.
Okay. Is religion in their laws?
Yes. However, they go upon French laws that were established in the colonial era, depending on the situation. So it's a very, very blended situation. That's why I told you, one ruler, many systems versus one ruler, one system. It's just different. And that's why you have to come and have your own experience.
Yeah. Which country's healthcare system is best in your opinion? While living abroad, did you ever have a medical emergency? Oh, good question.
I did have a medical emergency when I was living in Berlin. and the doctor thought that I had a thrombosis going on. A thrombosis is basically kind of like a clotting of the blood to the lung in this case. And it was a day before I was supposed to travel to Morocco, which was very, very scary. And I think it was kind of like one of those signs, one of those aha moments. And I was just like, I'm going to Morocco. I'm going. I don't care what happens. I am going on this journey. I have to go, you know. And once I landed, I went and I saw they have great dentists here, by the way. Got my teeth fixed here. And it's way cheaper than in the States and in Europe. And I can give you guys recommendations if you need them. But when I got on that plane, I just felt, I don't know, I was in like this state of, I don't know. I just felt great. My spirit was in a different place, and everything turned out to be fine. And I got meds, you know, when I landed from a great doctor, and I was fine. Everything was fine. But I would say healthcare is the best in Europe, Western Europe.
Interesting. Okay.
Germany, I had a really great doctor. Also in Spain, I had a really great doctor. The Netherlands is also good, but very bureaucratic.
Yeah. Okay. 2 more questions, y'all.
Okay.
I don't know what else has been asked, but it's been 2 hours, y'all.
I know.
We got to go. So Tunisia asked, does Morocco have good infrastructure, internet, transportation, good streets, housing options?
Internet is great. Transportation is still in development. So what you have is a situation where now we have a speed train. In 2 hours, you can get from Tangier City to Casablanca. So Tangier is literally that last city just before you take the ferry to Spain. And then from that city, Tangier, you can take a 2-hour speed train to Casablanca, the economic capital. Very cosmopolitan place again. From there, you can also take a normal national rail to Marrakesh. That is where it stops. In order to get to the southern capital, Agadir, you have to take a bus or you would have to take a plane directly from Marrakesh or Casablanca. They are working on 2 new speed lines, another one from Casablanca to Marrakesh, and then another one from Marrakesh to Agadir. These are set to be ready by, if I'm correct, 2030. So they are currently working on them right now. I've seen the infrastructure of this country completely get overhauled in a very, very short amount of time. 8 years? New tunnels, new bridges, new neighborhoods, new condos going up everywhere. I mean, there is a lot. Basically, if anybody has ever spent the 90s in New York, when they were building New York up and stuff like that and renovating all the time, that's what's been going on here. And they are preparing to host the World Cup in 2030. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So they're rebuilding their old stadium. They're building a couple of different types of venues for this thing. And it is definitely a place that you want to check out. It's also great if you want to buy oceanside property. So you may want to check this place out. Morocco is an awesome country, blended, very cultured, very diverse. And you will never have one day that is like any other.
You know, I think that when you said beachside property, I was like, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Because like I said, this we're going through a transition. We are living in interesting times.
Google Agadir. I'm telling you, you're going to love it.
I'm not sure that what we consider Western civilization is going to be the same 10 years from now, 15 years from now.
Let me tell you, emerging nations are really leading, they're paving the way. And actually, now you have apartments and homes in Morocco that are way more modern than what we have in the United States in many areas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here too.
Here
too. I mean, some of the things that they've done for environmental reasons and to save energy that I saw even 7 years ago when we were here, it's so far ahead of the United States. It's not even funny.
Right.
And we've got those high utility bills in the United States on top of it, and we're not even being nice to the planet. How old were you when you were in France?
In France, you mean Barcelona?
Yeah, she says, when you lived in France, what was your age? But I didn't hear you mention France. I
No, I
think you
didn't.
mentioned Spain.
Yeah, Spain,
Spain, Germany,
Barcelona.
Netherlands, and
Right.
Morocco.
Yes, exactly. I never lived in
So,
France.
yeah. So Jess, I'm not sure. And then last question, being black man, is it safe to be a black man outside of the United States?
It is safe to be a black man outside of the United States, undoubtedly. Are you safe with yourself? Are you confident? Do you have the skills, the tools, and the competences necessary and needed to thrive and survive outside of your home country? I think that is a bigger question.
Yeah.
True, true. I love that Adelia Borshade of Picky Girl Travel says everything is figure outable.
Absolutely.
But it's only figure outable if you believe that it's figure outable. You have to
Right.
be like there's a certain type of personality that thrives outside of their home country. And if not knowing makes you get anxiety, you probably want to stay home. You can do the touristy bubble thing and do on those guided tours and do cruises and stuff like that where everything's mapped
Absolutely.
out and you're in this tourist bubble and you get to see stuff, but you don't get to experience what it feels like. If not knowing makes you uncomfortable, moving abroad's not for you.
I
It's
agree.
because like we walked in here and didn't know how to use the dishwasher and the oven.
We
I
can't read it.
remember my
Right,
first time.
right. And you pulling up Google Translate trying to
Right.
trying to see what these words mean, or converting the Celsius to Fahrenheit, to cook food and all of that.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's an adventure. And I feel so fortunate that I have someone to do this adventure with.
Amen. Amen. It's a
And
different experience, isn't it?
it is. It really is. And we want everyone who's watching, trust yourself. Trust yourself to figure it out and be bold. Be
Right.
bold so that you can live the life that you really want to live.
Yeah.
Jaheed, it has been amazing
Thank
talking
you.
to you.
It's
Tell us.
Likewise.
it's been all I could do was listen.
Thank you.
Well,
It's like, gee, I
Likewise.
don't want to ask you many questions. I just want to hear.
well, what I was thinking was, damn, I wasn't that smart at 40. Shoot, I'd be a
But
cajillionaire by now if I was that smart at 40.
it is an ongoing process. We have to make sure that we are constantly learning. Learning never ends.
It shouldn't, but
It
I've known
shouldn't.
some old fools.
Yeah, it's true.
Don't get it.
I met some too.
I've known some
Cool.
old fools, right? But they are not watching this channel. We love y'all so, so much.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you for having
hanging
me.
out. Don't go anywhere, Jaheed.
Okay.
If you have more questions, you can follow Jaheed. I've had his, let me go ahead and put it up one more time. If you want to follow him on IG, it is English Sorted. The information is also in the description below. If you want to come to Portugal for our meetup on June 17th and 18th, our freedom celebration here in Portugal, those tickets and information is below. If you have more questions about Portugal or how to get your money straight and you need to book a one-on-one call or take our finance course, all of that information is below. It's funny because people email me like, where do I find this? It's like,
Yeah.
I copy and paste the same information. It's always below in the description. We love y'all and we will see you next Sunday.
All right. Bye bye.